Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be painting and adding details to the RC85 Corvette that I introduced in last week's video. In that previous video, I got the car up and running and working great. So now I can just focus on making the car look cool with some paint, custom wheels, and a few other mods. If you missed the previous video and want to catch up, I'll be sure to post the link to that below in the description. The car is looking pretty cool as is, but I wanted to take it to the next level, so I started by modifying the body mount. I did the work off camera, but basically I just made it so that the body will sit more level as the front was a little high up before, and I dropped the body down some to give the car a lower stance, which already makes it look cooler in my opinion. There were a few other changes I wanted to make, first being switching to using a smaller battery, as well as I needed to modify the interior around the gears, as it's now too low to clear them. Both of these modifications were pretty easy. Starting with the battery, I made some more room in the rear of the body for it to fit. However, as you'll soon see, I decided I'll be mounting the battery to the chassis instead of the body for the sake of simplicity. To have enough room for the gears, I grinded down this section on the bottom of the interior. As you can see, I went a little too far and broke through in a few spots. I'll be fixing this later, but for now, at least the gears have enough room. I needed to swap the battery connector on the ESC so it will be compatible with this smaller battery. And yes, in this case I needed to solder the black to red and red to black to have the correct polarity with this new connector. I did a quick test after soldering to make sure everything is still functional. It was at this point that I decided it would be easier to secure the battery directly to the chassis rather than the body. To do this though, I needed to remove most of the rear undercarriage piece. I tried to save the tailpipes, but there just wasn't enough material. I can now easily mount the battery to the back of the chassis. At this point I wanted to do a quick test drive to make sure the body wouldn't move around so much. As I mentioned in the previous video, the body moved around quite a bit when going over bumps and sharp turns. But after modifying the body mounts, the body seems to be staying pretty solid despite not adding any additional magnets. I may still add some at some point in the future, but at this point the car is looking and driving well, and I'm ready to start modifying the appearance of the car. The first thing I wanted to do was swap the wheels. Although I do kind of like the look of these rally wheels, I want to swap them out with something else. Just like in the previous video where I designed some custom wheels for my 2010 Shelby GT500, I once again went over to carid.com and used their visualizer to look at a bunch of different wheels. Just like with the GT500, some wheels certainly look better than others, but it's a lot of fun to see all of the different options. Rather than designing something new, I decided to go with this set of wheels that I previously had on the 85 Mustang SVO. The STL files for these wheels can be found on Patreon using the link below in the description. I swapped out the rear wheels as you can see. I needed to remove the spacers that I had in the front, but after that I swapped out the front wheels as well. The black doesn't show up the best on camera, but I think they look great on this car. I removed the interior and glass so I could start doing a little body work. I started by sanding away any imperfections the best I could. The body does have some cracks and damage in a few spots, but I still wanted to spend a little time sanding the body and removing some of these imperfections and preparing it for primer. Before applying the primer, I removed the chrome from the emblems with some alcohol and then thoroughly washed the body. I applied some standard gray automotive primer. I then sanded the entire body using 600 grit sandpaper. After another wash, I applied some silver Duplicolor paint, followed by the gloss clear coat. After only 2 light coats, I unfortunately ran out of the silver paint, and I did all of this paint work in one evening, so the result wasn't amazing, but good enough for a driver. This was just something I wanted to slap together right before USTE, and I'm not overly concerned about the appearance. I did try to polish it, but it's still pretty rough. After another thorough wash, I masked off this center trim and used an airbrush to paint it black. The trim turned out looking nice, but unfortunately once again as a result of the rushed paint job, the masking tape took off some of the paint. Normally I'd repaint the car, but again with this being a driver I'm trying to put together quickly, I'm just going to leave it as is. I will be painting the rest of the details by hand to avoid this happening again. I guess we'll just call this car the Craigslist Special Corvette. I do want to change gears here real quick and focus once again on the interior. To cover the holes in the rear, I measured and then cut a piece of styrene to glue over top and then glued that into place. After that, I applied some red paint. While giving that some time to dry, I switched back to the body and began painting a bunch of details from the door handles to the taillights. Although masking and using an airbrush would have given the best result for most of these sections, to save time and to prevent any more paint from peeling off, I just hand painted each of these details. The body looks pretty cool once these details have been added. I cleaned up the glass with some polish and painted a few sections black. I gotta say, I really like the look of the tint that's already on the glass. Although I didn't fully detail the interior, I did paint the dash and steering wheel black just like it would be on the real car. With all that painting complete, I secured the interior to the body. Just one last thing to do, and that's to add the tailpipes. Since I had to cut the factory tailpipes off, I designed a very simple tailpipe piece that I could glue to the body using Fusion 360. Once again, this design can be found on Patreon. I printed the parts, made sure they fit, and then painted them before gluing to the body. The tailpipes really came out looking nice, even though I couldn't make them too deep because of the battery. At this point, the car is complete. Despite the paint job replicating a Craigslist special, overall I really like how the car looks. I think the silver with the black wheels and red interior really works well on this car. I also really like the styling of the C4 Corvette, so this is an overall really cool little car. I look forward to doing some driving, especially since I don't have to worry about inflicting the first scratch or paint chip. If the body was in a little better shape, I might consider stripping the paint and starting over, but I'm fine with it as is, and would rather start over with a new undamaged body than spend more time on this car. I'll probably be putting this car up for sale after USTE in case anyone's interested, otherwise it's a fun car to cruise around the track with. Speaking of cruise around the track, although I've driven the car multiple times already, I figured I'd take it for another spin with the car completed. As I've said, it's a lot of fun to drive. And that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and don't forget we're just a couple weeks away from the Ultimate Scale Truck Expo down in Williston, Florida. You'll find more info in the link below in the description. It's a great time and I hope to see a lot of you there. But that's all for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.